Welcome, everyone. It's really nice to almost see you in our Upstream Kanban webinar. So this webinar will be sort of follow-up on the webinar which I have done 4 years ago. It was already 4 years ago when we talked about Upstream Kanban, Discovery Kanban for the first time. I also shared some information with you during this webinar. And when I will be talking today, at one of the slides, you will see a QR code which you can scan and you can go directly to this webinar, but I will take you there. So today we do the follow-up because of some news actually coming into the Upstream Kanban world. One of this news is that we are launching very, very soon our new class, Demand Manager, and this class will be focused solely on Upstream Kanban. And the second news is that last week, we added a new book to our Amazon page with our books. And actually, I can show you this book, which looks like, this. This is Upstream Kanban, and this is the third book from our Better with Kanban series. So this book talks about all details, all practices, anything that you can actually do with your Upstream Kanban. So because we have these two things happening in the Upstream Kanban content area, we decided that we'll share with you some news, some information, maybe some new stuff that you can find there, and maybe it will get you interested. So let's get started. Okay, so what is our plan for today? So we'll start with short introduction to what is Discovery Upstream Kanban. Then I will try to answer the question, is Upstream Kanban for everyone or maybe for some special people only? Where to start if you start with Upstream and you don't know where you actually are? Then I will cover some team level visualization practices. And most of the webinar I will spend talking about Upstream visualization patterns that I observed over a few years working in the Upstream Kanban area, and these patterns that just keep repeating that we're able to collect and document, and that really work, and what you can actually learn from them, and in what circumstances these patterns appear. Okay, so let's get started. First, what is Upstream Kanban? So for those of you who are our AKTs, coaches, or even who declare that you are Kanban management professionals, you probably already know that Upstream Kanban is this area in our Kanban system between the pool of work and the commitment point. And then from commitment point to delivery, we talk about downstream or delivery Kanban system. So from the moment where a request appears in our pool of work, or sometimes we call it backlog, to the moment when we decide, okay, this is what we can commit to, this is the area of our Kanban system that we call Upstream Kanban. Recently in the class, I had this quite long discussion about what Upstream Kanban is with some students that really didn't have any previous or like Kanban experience or were not used to Kanban terminology. And what we also figured out, like finding the common ground, is that you can define the commitment point by, for example, definition of ready. So this moment in your process where you are creating definition of ready, where you decide, okay, this item is ready to go and we can start working on it, this will be your commitment point. So this is very, very general definition of Upstream Kanban. And when we are at this commitment point, we answer two main questions. So the first question, I already touched a bit. This is what we are going to work on next. So this is our question about what? This is the question about the business value. This is the question about the value for the client. And this is the decision that should be taken by anyone who is involved in working on the system. But mostly it should be decision driven by client and people from our organization working mostly for the client. So, for example, product owners, product managers, maybe business analysts, maybe some customer support people who are involved in this decision making. So this is where we decide, okay, out of all of these things that we have in our pipeline, in our backlog, this is what we believe brings the most value. This is what we want to work on next. And then when we already answered this question, what we want to work on the next, the follow-up question is, when should we start working on it? So it's not the question about when we deliver. Okay, this is totally separate thing that we don't cover here. This is the question about the start date. So when should we start working on it in order to deliver it? And this is the question for which we can answer using information about our lead time. So how long it's going to take for us to deliver this work. And this is the question that we can answer using information about cost of delay. So how much it's going to cost us if we delay it or if we don't do this today versus something else. So we answer this question understanding our system, our lead times, our metrics. So these are just two questions, these two main questions that we ask ourselves and our clients while making decision about the items in our process at the commitment point. Three main concepts that are related to work in Upstream Kanban are real options, triage, and deferred commitment. So going through each of them one by one. Real options. This is the concept that we borrowed from the financial management, where we, like in financial management, we do this investment assessment, where you are, for example, opening some investment projects. You need to decide whether you should actually proceed with this project or maybe not. Is it financially viable or not? And for this decision making, we are using something that we call real options. And we are not going to go into the details of financial management, real options right now. But basically, we borrowed this concept in Kanban and we adjusted this concept. And when we talk about Upstream Kanban, we have three main real options. So option to invest, option to shelf, and option to discard. Option to invest means that when we analyze the work item, the piece of work that we discussed with client, whether it should be done or not, we see that this item, this piece of work really brings value to our business and to the client, that it makes sense to do this. And we know this with low uncertainty. Okay, so this is quite clear to us with low uncertainty that this is something that we should work on because it's bringing us value. Then on the other side of the scale, we have option to discard. That means that together with our client, looking at the data, looking at cost of delay, looking at metrics, looking at current market conditions, anything that can help you to make the decision, you decide together that actually this work item doesn't bring required value to our business. Sometimes you may even expect losses from this investment. So that's why we decide to discard this item. And we make this decision with low uncertainty. Okay, so we have enough information to decide that we know we shouldn't proceed with this item. And then in the middle, we have the option to shelf. So we have option to invest. We know we should do this. We have option to discard. We know we shouldn't do this. And in the middle, we have option to shelf. This is where uncertainty is very high. So we keep collecting information. We keep doing analysis, talking about requirements, doing market research. But we still don't know whether we should invest or discard. And this is where we choose the option to shelf. So these are our three main options in Upstream Kanban. Then the next concept is triage. So we apply triage because we normally cannot do everything. We have more demand than capacity to fulfill this demand. And this is where we apply triage. So this is the decision about the urgency of work, what should be done now, what can be delayed, and how fast our item is metaphorically bleeding to death, because we borrow this concept from the war field and then from the medical arena. So this is the decision about triage. So this is decision about urgency of work and when we should start working on it. And then the third one the third main concept from Upstream Kanban is deferred commitment. So the main quote that comes from the book Commitment from Olaf Madsen and Chris Madsen says that we shouldn't commit early unless we know why. So it means basically we should defer commitment to the moment when we know that this is the point in the time where we should start. Because committing to work too early means very often that we start working on something that we don't really know, when our uncertainty is still very high. And quite often, if we commit, we start working on something, if we committed too early, it means that we may realize during the delivery process that actually we don't really know what it is, why we need it. It may result in changing decisions, in changing minds of clients, of us, or for example, the scope of work is expanding because we realize that actually we need much more things to be delivered than we initially thought about. So as I mentioned, the three main concepts from Upstream Kanban that help us to decide whether we should work on something or not, when we should start working on it, and when it actually has value for us and for the clients. And this is the slide that I started talking about at the beginning. So I talked about each of these concepts in more details in this webinar. So you can either scan this code now, or you can just go to our YouTube channel, David Anderson School of Management, and you search Discovery Kanban webinar. This is where we talked about it in more details. Now, going further, when I told you, like, is Upstream Kanban for everyone or not for everyone? This is one of the questions that comes up quite often in the class, where our students say, okay, I'm not really sure if I even need Upstream Kanban, if I have Upstream Kanban. How can I detect it? So our standard question to all, our standard answer to this kind of questions is, when you don't know where to start, always, always start with what you do now. So this is this fundamental concept of evolutionary change. One of the principles of the Kanban method: start with what you do now, okay? Don't spend too much time elaborating, oh, do I have upstream Kanban? Or I don't have upstream Kanban. I don't know whether I should design it or not. Just look at your current process and start evolving from this point, yeah? So start with what you do now, and it really doesn't matter whether you do Kanban, Scrum, XP, Waterfall, SDLC, or I don't know, you have your own process that you are using. It doesn't matter. Start where you are today and keep evolving. This is general advice. And maybe over this, in this process of evolution and discovering what you are doing today, you will uncloud upstream, because quite often upstream is this a bit ambiguous concept, idea that there are some items in the backlog, then something happens, you know, there are some product owners or maybe some business analysts doing some work, talking to clients, but we really don't visualize it. Like when we start working is actually development or some real work to deliver. So it's very important to visualize this a little bit ambiguous discussions with clients done by some people who we sometimes don't even talk to in our company. And how to uncloud this upstream system. So first we have some basic practices that can be applied at any point in your process. Visualize the process on your Kanban board or any board that you have, which means that cover the process as it is today. If you have backlog or pool of options, pool of work, then something is happening, and then you have the rest of your process visualized. Try to figure out what is this something that's happening between backlog and when you start working. If you really don't know what's happening, what you can do, again, instead of sitting days or weeks trying to make the perfect visualization, Start with this big fat in progress. Okay, so we'll have backlog, then analysis in progress or requirements in progress, whatever you decide to call it, or discussion with client in progress, up to you. And then next to do, next for delivery, and then is your commitment, your work starts. So if you don't know how it looks, create one big fat in progress column and then try to track what's happening in when the work is in this analysis in progress. And maybe you will figure out that there are some specific steps taken to do this analysis, to collect these requirements. Maybe not. Maybe your process will end up with big fat in progress for analysis, and it's also fine. Okay, don't over design your systems if not necessary. Visualize work in progress limits wherever possible. And it applies to both this in progress and also to do or next to do or ready to commit. So try to visualize work in progress limits wherever you are at your process. I use avatars to visualize who is doing what. It's always helpful. It helps with having explicit information about where the work is, who is working on it, who you can ask for information if you don't know that. Visualize work types using card colors or board rows. So when we talk about work types or work item types, we talk about the different types of requests that come to your process. If we talk about software development, it can be, for example, change request, defect, initiative, feature, user story. So it depends on you, on your process, what work item types you have. Visualize waiting items. This is important thing because when you have items on your board which are in column in progress, what your board is telling to you is that this work is in progress. Someone is actively working on it. So when the work is waiting, you should also visualize. So don't try to pretend that work is in progress while it's waiting for approval, for extra information, while waiting for client. This work is not in progress, it's waiting. So make sure that everyone can see it. Create explicit policies. Define the rules of work, define agreements, define service level agreements. So for example, item is waiting in this column for 1 week. And after 1 week, we should follow up with whoever is responsible for that to make sure that this work is moving on. Or definition of ready, which I already mentioned. Definition of ready should have some specific criteria for items to actually pass this definition of ready. This is also your policy. So make sure that all rules of work agreements are defined, established, and ideally also visualized in the place where everyone can access them. Establish cadences. So make sure that information is flowing, that let's come back to this waiting items. This is a good example. When things are blocked, when things are waiting, make sure that you are able to share this information. So you can share this information during your daily meetings. You can share this information during your retrospective, or maybe you have some catch-up meetings with, for example, some other departments in your business who you are dependent on. And this is where you can share with them, hey guys, we are waiting for you. This item is blocked. When can we get it solved? Yeah, so make sure that information is flowing all the time. You get feedback and you take actions depending on the feedback, that the work is not stuck if it doesn't need to be. And finally, collect flow-related metrics. I already mentioned lead time, so this is useful wherever you are really. If you are in downstream, if you are in upstream, end-to-end flow, measure your lead time. Measuring lead time always helps, even if you don't see immediately how you can use it. Believe me, you will use it later, and you will thank yourself for visualizing, collecting, and visualizing lead time. So very, very important metric. Also visualize work item aging and collect information about it because it's telling you that item is actually getting older and older, and eventually it may take a long time to deliver it. You can collect information about delivery rate, which will tell you how many items you deliver in some specific period of time. So there are a few things that you can collect. So start again with what you do today, and later you can check with our Kanban guide, for example, if there is anything else that you would like to track, because it's going to help you. So this is, if you don't know whether Upstream is for you or it's not for you, or maybe you are just as a working as a team, delivery team, and you don't even realize where you are at, where Upstream is at your system, you can start with this team level practices that will already help you to realize that actually, okay, so our work is waiting for this person, and this person is actually sitting in Upstream. So maybe there is some Upstream and we can visualize it as well. And now talking about the Upstream specifically, when you already find your Upstream system, there are there's a couple of patterns that, as I mentioned, we observed. And by we, I understand myself, but also a lot of other people doing work, uh, hundreds of students that went through our classes. And in each of our classes, each of the students designed their Upstream systems. And we discuss what they have. So basically, we can find these patterns repeating and repeating all over again. We found these three main patterns for visualization, and we call them three-board solution, two-board solution, and iterative discovery. And I will start with this one that I have seen, I believe, the most often, which is three-board solution. And I will start with telling you about this visualization on the specific example from one of the clients, and later I will give you the context of where it can appear and how it can be useful. So what you see here on this picture is a visualization, a very, very basic visualization of the process that I have observed working with one of the clients 2 years ago when we did Kanban system design class. And during Kanban system design, you have the static exercise system thinking approach to introducing Kanban, where one of the steps of static is design Kanban system, as it is today, and also as it's gonna look after introducing some improvements. So we basically started with this visualization, how it looks today. And in this, just to give a bit more context, in this class, I had a group of delivery managers and developers and testers working in downstream, but also I had a couple of product owners who worked in upstream system. And one of the main issues, one of the main sources of dissatisfaction that we identified at the beginning of this exercise was the issue with sharing information. And a lot of brainstorming happening in its organization, where upstream people said, "Oh, these delivery people, they don't really know what to work on. They don't know what to do. We ask them to build something, they build something totally different, and the client is not happy." And then downstream people said, these upstream product owners, they don't know what we should work on. All these requirements are so unclear. We don't really know what to do. So we just try to figure out the best things for our client. So there was a lot of complaining, but no point where they could meet and discuss. And you can also see it here. This upper board was used by product owners, and it basically said backlog in refinement done. And then anything that was in done was just dropped into to do for development teams, and you can see it at the bottom board. And then they just started doing the work on user story. There was like to do user story in progress, review, ready for testing, testing. When testing failed, they moved the item to the beginning because reasons. And then if it was tested properly, it was ready for merge and done. So when we identified that there's the main problem was not really with visualization, but with finding the space where they could communicate and discuss, we did this thing. And for now, I would like you to focus on this middle board in this sort of like bluish, greenish color. And what you see in this middle board, this is the three boards solution. So when you look at it, I hope that you can see my mouse. We have here this first column, which is called new. New is the backlog for the end-to-end process for product owners and development teams. Then product owners, who we call now upstream, work on drafting requirements. They call it product owner draft. When they drafted requirements, they describe them and they moved them to the status, which was called ready for refinement. We are still in upstream, okay? It's not a delivery. So it was board number one. Even though it was one visualization, it was technically board number one. The second one, this middle board, with again only two columns, okay? So avoid over design. When development teams, delivery teams were ready to actually discuss the work that product owners described, it was moved to in refinement. And in refinement, it was the stage of the process, this phase of the process, where both product owners and developers, testers, whoever was involved in delivery, they met and discussed the requirements. This is where product owners could explain the requirements. This is where developers and testers could ask questions about things they didn't understand. They could evaluate the technical feasibility. Do we even know how to do this? Do we have infrastructure to do this? Do we need some extra development before we actually start working? When everyone understood most of it, it's impossible to understand everything, but most of it, just to make sure that we avoid huge failures, it was moved to ready for development. And then it was in ready for development, okay? We didn't commit yet. Commitment was the moment when delivery teams decided now we have available capacity, we can start working on it. And this is when they pulled work from ready for development to in development. And this was this red line. This red line indicates commitment where the actual delivery started. And this after red line is our delivery downstream system. So three boards means that we have first board, which is like purely upstream board, where upstream people only are working on defining some requirements, mostly with the clients. Then we have this middle second board where downstream and upstream meet and discuss requirements to clarify all doubts or questions. We can come back to the client to clarify things. Delivery organization is also providing some information. And then we have the third board, which is delivery board, like pure downstream delivery board, where we do the development work or other delivery work. Okay, so this is solution number one, three board solution: upstream, middle ground, and delivery. When do we observe this pattern? So this pattern occurs mostly where we have situation that we have upstream organization, we have downstream organization, but they are not talking to each other at all. And there is so much misunderstanding happening, so many like problems going on, problems which are purely related to miscommunication or lack of communication. And there is a lot of this blaming and pointing fingers, all these product people and these delivery people, instead of just designing the system that supports communication and understanding what we actually work. And this is what this visualization does for you. It first engages everyone in understanding and designing upstream workflow. So it's not some cloudy, unclear, ambiguous phase in your process. And it also provides the platform for communication and deliberating the customer's needs and product requirements. Okay, so this is pattern number one, the most common. Really, I've seen it so many times emerging totally naturally. So people didn't know their cases before, they just designed it. The second one, two-board solution. Another example. So I've been involved in work on fixed project, which was delivered using SDLC, System Development Lifecycle, Software Development Lifecycle, sorry. And so there were some steps of this work that were predefined by SDLC, and we had our small team delivering the work. And you can see initial design of this delivery process with backlog, next design, development, review, external review, testing, deployment. And that was the process. Yeah. And we started working on requirements, client requirements. We started delivering. And what happened was a lot of defects coming back to our process. Even more change requests. Okay, so we deliver work and then customers say, no, it's not like this. It shouldn't work like this. You totally misunderstood what we wanted. So to avoid these problems with at this time miscommunication directly with clients and misdelivering on client requirements, we started thinking what we can do better to improve this process. And this board and this visualization went through a couple of stages of improvement. So on the next slide, I will show you sort of like the final stage, and I will explain you what you are looking at and why this is two-board solution. So again, we'll be, in terms of two-board solution, we'll be looking at this bottom board, okay? This is the project team board, end-to-end process. So the first board here, this blue, again, bluish board, this is the upstream system where we have next analysis business review. And this is directly related to this upper visualization, which was business team board. So this is where business team client was visualizing their piece of work. And then they were feeding the project team board. And this is where project team board picked up, and project team picked up, business analyst picked up the work and started finalizing clients' requirements. Okay, so this bluish system here is upstream system that emerged, evolved from this, when we started involving client in this work. So this is the first thing. Then the blue line here determines commitment point again. And after commitment point, we start talking about the downstream system. So this whole thing here, this purple and blue, this is downstream system. So this actual development, testing, and delivery. Why two-board solution instead of three-board solution? Because here we have just upstream commitment, downstream. There is no middle ground. Client is involved in work with the upstream system. Client is also involved in user acceptance testing. But upstream and downstream work happens within the same sort of organization. Yeah? So we just need to determine where is commitment point. But there is no separate upstream organization and separate downstream organization. I spent quite long time trying to figure out that maybe there is some hidden three boards pattern here, but there is not. There is no middle board for upstream and downstream because everything happens within the same organization that covers end-to-end process. And what else we can see here is that this process sort of like naturally emerges from previously like team level delivery system. So this is what we call in Kanban scaling in width. So basically scaling your system to the, you see it this way, to the left. So you add the upstream system to your previously established downstream system. So there is no upstream, downstream, and you glue them together. You have downstream, and then you develop it, you grow it, you mature the system by adding upstream to the left of this work. When do we observe this pattern? So it results from emerging upstream process, scaling Kanban in width as the process matures. And normally I have seen this pattern where there was some team level Kanban introduced before, or some waterfall style processes or frameworks installed. Normally no discussion about upstream, downstream, what it is, or some product organization. How does it help? So this model, this pattern naturally grows when your system grows, when your system matures, when you start realizing that there is actually customer and the customer needs something and you should really deliver on customer needs and not on what you think is the best. So you reach out to customer, you really try to involve them in the process. And it really helps with directly addressing customer needs and purposes, and later eliminating this failure demand, so change requests and defects. And the last pattern, the most tricky one, this is the pattern which helps to answer the question also appearing in the class. For me, this whole upstream idea is more like we have an idea, we validate this idea, we have some feedback, and then we need to rework something. We did the rework, we evaluate this rework, and we have some feedback, and we are reworking it. And we can have a couple of cycles like this: do the work, review, rework. Yeah, do the work, review, rework. So the question from the students was, how should I visualize this pattern of going circles um, with this sequential style of Kanban? So what you need to realize is that it's not going circles, okay? What you are doing is going this way. So when you are going spiral, okay, you do something and you review it, but you are not coming to the same point where you were, because by reviewing it, you have more information now. So it's not coming back. It's just adding this information, adding this feedback to what you work on. So you are doing another circle, another round of reviews. You have more information. Again, you are not coming back. You are doing another round of reviews. So now if we do this and we tilt it 90 degrees, now you can visualize it on your sequential Kanban board. And this is the example that I can show you from School of Management, where we are designing new classes. So this is quite a big process. I will very shortly tell you what you see on this big board, and later I will zoom into the actual specific part of what I'm talking about. So when we are working on new classes, on new ideas, we have this pool of ideas where everyone can drop an idea. And then we have a couple of rounds of elaborating and doing market research around each idea. So there is round number one, round number 2, 3, and then there is commitment point. And now I will zoom in to show you these 3 iterations, this going spiral. Okay. So iteration 1, if we decide that we want to work on something, we pull this work from pool of ideas, we do some outline description, a very high level description of what it is, what this class should be about, and we do some initial market probing. Okay, so researching, is there even the market for this idea, for this class? Should we even invest in it? If we say, okay, this is our decision point, if we say, okay, we want to invest in it, we do the next round. So we elaborate, we write a bit more, we write learning objectives, we try to figure out what should be in this class. So now we get more detailed information, and we do some more detailed market research, reaching out to our clients, to our students, to our trainers, some of the trainers, to figure out whether there is they need to have this class in place. If it says again, okay, we should invest in it, and now the real work starts. So we created a slide deck, we create exercises, we do the mirror, we do some detailed descriptions, we prepare class materials. Do we need any simulation for that? Then we do internal delivery review, where we go through the class and figure out whether it makes sense, logic, so on and so forth. And then go to market means that we are listing the class, looking if there is any interest from the market to actually do we even have clients for this class. And each of these iterations consists of the same 2 steps. Create content, do market research. Create content, do market research. Create content, do market research. But this is not going circles. With each of these iterations, we learn more about this piece of work. We learn a little bit here, we learned more here, we learn the most here. At each of these steps, item can be discarded. So we decide, no, it doesn't make sense. There is no market for this piece of work. No one is gonna buy it. We don't need it. at each of the steps, icon can be shelved. So for example, it doesn't make sense to do it today, but there are some signs from the market that maybe it's worth working on in half a year. That's why this is iterative approach in that sense that it looks like we are going circles, but actually we don't. We do this rounds of discovering, and with each round of discovery, we learn something new. And this is why we can visualize it. Even though this is iterative process, we can still visualize it as sequential process on the board. Now, important thing. What I'm showing you are three main patterns. It doesn't mean that your process falls into any of these patterns. So I just talked about this stuff when we apply it and how this visualization helps. Sorry for that. And if you now don't know where to start and you still don't know whether any of these patterns is going to work for you. So some summary advice. First, start with what you do now. Okay, see what you have today. Maybe you already do something and you can just improve it. Identify your problems. Is your problem with lack of communication between upstream and downstream process? Is your problem in not really involving client, understanding client needs? So you just do delivery, but there is this client part of work is really like set aside and you don't really talk to the client because they are scary. Or maybe you have you are working in sort of like creative area in the sense that you are designing things, like designing classes, designing some visuals like posters. You are designing some marketing campaigns. This is where you would probably need this iterative approach. So identify what is your problem. And you can apply any of these general solutions that I showed you at the beginning, like visualization solutions, policies, cadences, metrics, or if any of these patterns can be applied to your process, just apply this pattern and try how it works for you. It may happen that none of these patterns is working for you. Maybe your process is specific, maybe your problems are different. If you find your own pattern, if you find your own solution for that, let us know, okay? Because we are always eager to hear from you, from your experience. It helps us to develop the content from others. I can have my sample of data and my experience, but this is very, very small experience in the scale of the globe and people doing the actual work. So if there is anything and if any feedback you would like to share with us, share it with us, okay? Don't be afraid. And also don't be afraid to experiment. So if you apply any of the patterns, experiment with these patterns, change them the way that they suit you. If there is any new pattern, also experiment with that and let us know. So this stuff and many, many more is either in this book that I mentioned at the beginning, which was just published. So you can either read it in the book or you can also subscribe to Better with Kanban Plus. This content is in either of these places. Okay, I'm still leaving this slide for a few more seconds. So you can search for it, or if you don't manage to do it right now, it will be also available in a few days on our YouTube, so you can scan it also later. And one more thing, because as I mentioned, we are delivering this, developing this delivery manager class, and right now this is in the last iteration, so go to market phase. For the first class, we are doing this first students discount for demand manager class, so you can apply this discount early summer demand. And I see you in the class, hopefully, in July. We'll be talking about visualization, but we'll be talking about many more things, like real options, triage, deferred commitments, inventory, how to deal with large backlogs, how to identify customer needs. So there will be a lot of stuff in this demand manager, which is basically teaching you how to work with your upstream system. So I will leave this one here if you want to copy this code. And I'm looking at Q&A section, and we have one question. Okay. Do you typically have different abstractions of work items on the free or to board solution? For example, epics in upstream, stories in the downstream. If so, do you try to visualize the relationship between them? It happens. So maybe let me come back to this visualization that I showed you at, in the middle, because what you are asking about actually appeared here. Okay. So I mostly talked about this middle board, which was this three-board solution. But what you see here on this bigger picture are three, actually even more, but three main separate boards. So the one here on the top visualizes like a very end-to-end process, but this is end-to-end process from the product manager perspective. So in this organization, product managers were people talking to the clients mostly. Yeah, so it was like direct contact with the client, dealing with the request, but also dealing with customer contracts. So whenever there was a new contract signed, they created, they call it feature. So, and the features, so the feature represented the actual functionality from the client perspective. And this feature was tracked on this whiteboard on the top. Then, and they started like they really did very, very high level, basically translation from contract to some bullet points in terms of requirements. So they on the top board they tracked these features, and feature was the full end-to-end like functionality, and it was end-to-end board. But also on this top board, they visualized many different features happening across different clients and different parts of the organization. Yeah? So it was very, very high level work without going into any details. Then the bottom one, again, you see one board, but actually these were like a couple of boards like this, I think 6 or 7, that visualized the work from the product owner perspective. And then product owner took the feature, and this feature was divided into a couple of epics. And then these epics were tracked on this middle board. Again, end-to-end work, but now a bit more granular. So each feature on this top board had few epics on this middle board, and there was this parent-child relationship between them. And then the last one, the bottom, this is, as it says, user story level, and this is the development team board. So for each of these features, we had basically 7 development teams. So there was like plenty of this development teams board. And again, user stories were created for epics. So one epic could consist of, I don't know, 10, 20, sometimes even more user stories, depending on the size of this work. And these user stories had this parent-child relationship with epics on the middle board. And then each team tracked their piece of work, and they together formed this epic, and then few epics formed the feature, and they all were linked with parent-child relationship with some automations introduced in the visualization system. So they didn't have to like track, okay, this item moved, so now this item has to move. It all happened automatically. For example, if item here moved to development, also the epic moved to development. Okay, so I answered this question. If you have any other questions, please drop them now. If not, I just move back to this last slide, if you still want to use it. Oh, okay, wait, there is a question in the chat. Is there electronic digital copy of the book like Kindle? No. The electronic copy of the book is this bottom subscribe part. So you can access it in electronic form on Kanban class as part of Better with Kanban's subscription. So Better with Kanban actually right now consists of Upstream Kanban and Discovering Kanban, and there will be more books coming. So in total, Better with Kanban will consist of 5 books, but they are in writing. Yeah, so this is one option, and another one is physical book from Amazon, but we don't have Kindle. Okay. Waiting few more seconds for more questions. For iterative discovery, how many levels will you recommend? Oh my God. I'm sorry, but I'm not able to answer this question. So, and I know that you hate this answer. I know, but it really depends. It depends on your process. You need to figure out how it looks, how many iterations you have. It can be 2, 3 iterations, or can be 5 iterations. Um, I'm not able to tell you because I will tell you now you have to have 3 iterations and then you will hate me because you will need 4. So if you don't know, also sometimes you may not be sure if you need iterative process or not. If you don't know, try with this fat in progress and work with it for a few weeks and try to see how it looks, how many iterations you observe, and later try with visualizing iterations. I wouldn't, if you don't know, I wouldn't start with like fixed, I know, 3 or 5 iterations because you may find it really annoying to work with. So if you don't know, I would start with 1 in progress and then observe this process, how it looks. Yeah, this is how I would go. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So if you have any questions after webinar, you know how to find us. You can either draw us an email at dj dot at sorry info@dj.com, pardon, or you can just message me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very happy to have you here today. Thank you for your time, for your evenings, for your mornings or nights, wherever you are sitting. And good luck with everything that you plan to do with your Kanban systems, upstream systems. And yeah, I hope to see you soon on our Kanban journey. Thank you and see you. Bye bye.